Representative for Lower Salem constituency calls on his colleagues to preach peace on their subjects ahead of the December polls. Gambia's tourism sector lost more than $6 billion due to COVID-19 restrictions. Elsewhere, Afghanistan domestic flights resume operation at Kabul International Airport following Taliban takeover. These and more stories coming your way on the news desk. Hello and welcome to the news desk, coming to you live on iAfrica TV, and I am Julde Suare. Now the news in detail. As Gambians get ready for the much anticipated December presidential elections, the fear of political related chaos is time to time discussed with a view to minimize harm. The latest to hit on this subject is National Assembly member for Lower Salem constituency, Ala Jimbo, who advised his fellow lawmakers to engage in more dialogue with their subjects. This, he said, will help mitigate elections violence. Details in this report by Usman Jatta.
Elections in Africa are normally marked with violence, mostly among loyalists of the different political parties. With about 20 political parties and several independent candidates ahead of the next presidential elections, 2021 appears to be the toughest political year for the Gambia.
Thank you. Almighty
Members
God,
of Parliament, being the people's representatives, are considered by Honorable Mbow the right agents to mitigate the risks involved in political activities. Hence, the pre-election message shot to his fellow deputies.
I think the parliamentarians actually they have a great role in actually playing to ensure that we have peace in these elections. Because all of us actually have thousands of people that actually support us. We have thousands of people that actually listen to us. And I think we've got to use that power to influence those people to ensure that they behave or they abide by the rules and regulations. We have laws in this country. We have IEC that will give actually all the political parties what they can and what they cannot do. And I think it's important that all the parliamentarians actually have a great understanding with what the IEC actually is trying to tell people to do, all in the name of creating peace in this country.
The 2016 presidential election demonstrated an exact picture of post-election violence. Several families were displaced as a state of public emergency was declared by the exiled former president, who failed to concede defeat. Military checkpoints were mounted in every major street in the Greater Banjul and the West Coast urban centers, prompting the intervention of the Air Force military force. The member for the Pan-African Parliament for the advised his co-MPs act responsibly in order to promote peace ahead of the December presidential polls.
And I will urge all my colleagues to ensure that we talk to our people. Talking to the people only, it may not be enough. We must do, how do I call it again? We must act also, and we must also talk in a way that would also encourage our own people to behave like we are all citizens of this country. Again, there's no particular person that actually owns this country. So you say whatever you want to say, at the detriment of a group of people or detriment of a community or a party or whatever. I don't think those are the things that we really don't need to do. And I think the most important is for us to be able to talk to our people to ensure that they really understand that this is a democratic country. Everybody actually has the right to contest for any particular position in this country.
The Gambia, known as the smiling coast of Africa, is well known for peace and peaceful coexistence of her population. For the NRP member of the Assembly, prevention being better than cure must be the philosophy of stakeholders in the electoral process.
What I think is only one Gambia, and that would also make it fair. Economic responsibility, we have a lot of people that listen to us, we have a lot of people that follow us.
As the month of December draws nearer, it is important for every citizen to think twice before. Until then, the electorates have a huge responsibility and choice to make the interest of the country over individual interest. Osman Chata, iAfrica News.
Alajimbo calls on his colleagues to preach peace ahead of the December 4 presidential elections. Now, furniture production has gained momentum in India over the past decade, with most producers adapting to the market. The arrival of the imported furniture in the West country mainly is, however, worrying to some of the skilled specialists on what are the carpenters doing with the business. COVID-19 pandemic, Usman reports.
The gain of the past of local furniture producers who believe is seriously affecting their businesses. Amadou is a furniture designer in Pakistan. The business petition voted once.
Business furniture, you see, come again, disturbance.
But we are and furniture is affected seriously. Most of the imported furniture are not mostly imported. That's why they we use
on the side of local furniture of imported furniture, if that the is normal as in any given business. Churches, I Ismail Akoli of imported furniture.
And business on Kodolo.
Say the business going as expected. Most people are starting to earn money. Business goes with money. If there's money, business goes fine. I think the pandemic is the backbone of this problem because cash is not flowing as expected. Prior to the pandemic, business was booming. People were never afraid of spending money, but now it's the opposite. Several data revealed that the Gambia's import is more than its export shares. The United Nations International Trade Statistics data revealed in 2019 that the Gambia's importation is worth $1.61 billion, making it the 163 trade destinations in the world. During the last 5 years, the imports of the country changed by $368 million from $1.24 billion in 2014 to $1.61 billion in 2019. For this being the case, some local furniture designers like Amadou Ba blame the government for not doing much in the area of youth empowerment.
The government bi mom wax deug neex la man gisuma dara luñ créer pour youth ci gisuma ben factory luma gis rek parti bu nekk nga tawal sa parti bop espérer di ruling party.
To be candid enough, I have not seen any meaningful development by the government to help the youth of this country. They are not building factories. All we see is the formation of political parties. We worked day and night during the course of the COVID-19 pandemic. With all the stress, no one offered us assistance. And this is where we struggle to put food on the table for our families.
So with or without them, we're going to surely make it.
A publication of how we made it in Africa indicated that the West African country's manufacturing sector continues to be underexploited with limited concentration of interconnected manufacturing companies. The sector consists mainly of medium-sized enterprises located primarily in urban areas. The sector's share of the GDP continues to be low, forming the basis of increased government efforts to expand industrial production and development. Osman Jata, iAfrica News.
domestic flights resume operation at the Kabul International Airport, which had closed following a massive evacuation of U.S. military forces. Reopening the airport was at a high priority for the Taliban after it seized control of Kabul last month. The Taliban have sought Qatari technical assistance to resume operations, which was badly damaged during the hasty evacuation of more than 120,000 people when the American troops withdrew on August 31st. Details in this report.
The Kabul International Airport has resumed normal operations. It was rendered dysfunctional when the US and allied forces left Afghanistan last month. It resumed domestic flights within 5 days of the final evacuation, with support from technical teams from Qatar and Turkey. The state-owned Ariana Afghan Airlines was the first to restart operations since the US troops withdrew.
The number of flights is increasing day by day. I can say that we had some international flights as well. There were flights of humanitarian aid by friendly countries to the people of Afghanistan.
The Taliban did not have the technical expertise to run the airport. Afghan technicians and staff alongside experts from Qatar and Turkey are currently operating the facility.
All the Civil Aviation Authority plus local specialist worker, they have start working day and night and very hard work. For technical issue, you know, you're in the picture that the Qataris team came from Qatar in order to assist us. And they started from the communication system to recover Kabul tower communication or tower control communication with the aircraft.
A large number of Afghans are stuck in India, Turkey and the UAE who are eagerly waiting to return to their homeland. There are 2 domestic and 8 international airlines which have flight contracts with the Kabul International Airport. The airport is fully prepared for their flights, but their operations are tied to international aviation conventions.
Some technical issues still exist for operating international civil flights carrying travelers. The percentage of work done is 85 to 90%, and the rest will be done soon.
In letting flights resume, the Taliban have not only allowed the resumption for commerce and travel, but have also paved the way for humanitarian activities to restart and facilitated the evacuation of people who have valid documentation.
Afghanistan domestic flights resume operation at the Kabul International Airport. Now, after the military takeover, Guineans took to the streets to celebrate what they called an end to a decade of corruption and suffering by the Alpha Condé-led government. The new military leaders are seeking to tighten their grip on power and are ordering Mr. Condé's soldiers to join them. Although many Guineans welcome the military takeover, they are uncertain of their future. Details in this report.
The scenes of jubilation in Conakry following the overthrow of Alpha Condé show how much the Guinean people longed for a change in the way power was managed in this poor West African country. No clashes or demonstrations have been reported against the coup and its leaders so far. But what do Guineans themselves say about this turn of event in their country?
Last Sunday, we had gunshots at the 8th November bridge, and afterwards, we saw the special forces passing by to deliver Guinea. At 11 a.m., we heard that President Alpha Condé was arrested. The whole of Guinea danced following the arrest of President Condé. The young people cheered because the people have suffered too much from corruption. We hope that the youth will have jobs now.
I support the military coup in Guinea because we have been suffering for 10 years. My friends who are here also support the military in their new function. I think that in 6 months or a year, they will organize elections to hand over power to civilians. I have hope that things will change. I have hope because Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya knows our sufferings.
I can't appreciate this coup because I don't know what's going on in the army. What we can say is that the people are suffering. I leave my house every morning to come to work here. But in reality, we must recognize that nothing is moving in the country. The youth are suffering.
Among the sectors most affected by the coup in Guinea are land and air transport. Road transporters are protesting the closure of Guinea's borders with some neighboring countries, blocking hundreds of trucks and light vehicles used to cross border traffic.
Since last Sunday, leaving Conakry for the interior of the country has become a real titanic struggle because there are roadblocks everywhere. The price of fuel went up and they told us to be patient.
Nepotism and the high cost of living attributed to the regime of the thrown president Alpha Condé.
That report in Guinea-Conakry to our first small local and international.
The location, the design, all the wind, elevators
was in the Gambia called Taft Twins. The Taft Twins is located in the heart of the Kanifing institutional area and 10 minutes drive away from Banjul. Taft is designed to have 5 floors, 1,000 square meters, with 2 elevators. Now on 3 sides.
Policy. Tourism is one of the fastest growing sectors in the Gambian economy, accounting for roughly about
25% of the gross domestic product, GDP, and creates employment for about 200,000 jobs. Unfortunately, it is one of the hardest hit sectors as a result of travel restrictions. Overall, the estimated loss to the sector from January to June 2020 was about $6.7 billion. This figure has undoubtedly increased, noting that many establishments are still struggling to get back to full operations.
As part of the authoritative order of the authority, quality control systems, investment standards, and security feature were set up as important functions in the day-to-day activities of the tourism body. The president promised that his government will bear the operating license for hotels as well as municipal rates for this year as the sector hopes to revive. According to him, the Gambia Tourism Board is not expecting revenue in the regular format in the year 2021.
2020, the Gambia Tourism Board's GTB recorded 89,232 arrivals. The figure marks a significant decline against the NDP target. In 2021, the arrival figure further decreased to 50,000. Consequently, the loss of revenue to GTB is high. As part of its support packages, government gave the tourism sector a $100 million stimulus package. This year, the government will bear the operating license for hotels and municipal rates. The GTB is not expecting any revenue from operational license in 2021.
The tourism sector, which employs more than 15,000 workers, is the country's second largest contributor of the GDP after agriculture. When the coronavirus emerged in the country in March last year, the government was forced to shut down the industry and ordered people to stay at home to control the spread of the virus. Tourism workers in the country have had their earnings put on hold, while others remain jobless due to the ravaging pandemic. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Fatmata Kasim.
President Adama Barrow said the tourism sector lose over $6.7 billion due to COVID-19 restrictions. Now, private school owners in Uganda have converted their schools into guest houses and poultry farms in order to make a living in the face of the global health crisis. The government of Uganda has lifted some COVID-19 restrictions after 42 days, but schools remain closed until sufficient vaccination of eligible children took the COVID-19 vaccines. Details in this report.
Ronald Chitimbo stares at what is left of his former school, a daycare center and nursery for children. He recently converted the buildings into a guest house.
I started this school because of my love for education. I think we have done a good job to train and change the lives of Ugandan children. But when the pandemic struck, schools, especially the private-run facilities, felt the immediate impact.
Ronald is among the many private school owners that have been struggling to cope during the lockdown. He says even before the pandemic, some schools had long been on a shaky financial footing. But with no hope of opening soon and no government bailout plan, school owners like him decided to think of alternatives.
I got a bank loan to expand the school, to start a primary section. This daycare center was my backup plan to pay back the loan. But we have been closed for 2 years. I had to think of another way to get money, instead of losing my property to the bank.
Asha Kebirungi had just invested in this school a year ago, but the pandemic hit before she was able to recoup any of that. Instead of closing permanently, she has decided to make use of it in a different way. The idea did not go down well with her landlord.
I explained to her, I told her the situation is alarming. I want to get your money. I don't want you to stop me from staying there, because a moment I'll release the place, maybe the government might open the schools. Yet I've put in much.
Asha started with one room, but she's slowly expanding this into a full-blown poultry farm. About 15 children occupy this classroom on a normal school day, but Asha has converted the space into a chicken house, growing about 100 meat birds for sale to sustain her family and also pay rent for this facility until school reopens. The government in Uganda considers schools super spreaders of the COVID-19 disease, and it has set conditions to vaccinate all teachers before schools can reopen. Several vaccination centers have been set up exclusively for teachers.
I took the initiative to come get vaccinated so that when schools open, I can start work.
We need to get back to work. We miss our children, and I believe they miss us too. It's been a long time.
But even if they have had a shot, many of these teachers have no schools to return to. A further escalation of the pandemic means more school owners are likely to close their schools permanently to turn to alternative ventures.
The report in Uganda brings us to the end of the news text, but for more of these and others, you can join us at 17:30 GMT for the World Today News Bulletins. Many thanks indeed for the pleasure of your company, and do have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.